This is VOA Africa.
Good evening. I'm Esther Giduyu. It's Monday, October 7th. This is Africa 54. Will there be a free, fair, and peaceful election in Mozambique? Analysts say no way. Cameroon's main opposition leader, Maurice Kamto, and at least 100 others walk free from jail. And the U.S. House of Representatives moves forward with an impeachment inquiry against President Donald Trump as allegations of corruption fly in both directions. We begin our broadcast in Southern Africa, where an escalating insurgency, attacks on political campaigners, and a terrified population have set a worrying scene for Mozambique's election on October 15. The national vote is expected to be the toughest contest yet for Mozambique's ruling Frelimo party. VOA's Anita Powell reports.
Mozambique is hurtling towards a poll that looks on the surface like a simple two-way contest between the long-ruling Frelimo party and the opposition Renamo party. It is anything but simple, analysts say. In fact, they are worried the poll will lack two essential qualities. One is fairness.
No, it's not going to be free and fair. There are simply too many indicators going against what the SADC is supposed to stand for in terms of democracy and the standard of democracy. But then we've seen with the SADC, we've seen it in the DRC, we have seen it in Zimbabwe, we have seen it in Malawi. The rules change, the interests change as it goes along, so it's going to be interesting to see how the SADC spin doctor is going to spin this one.
Nor, say analysts, will it bring what this war-torn nation badly needs. Despite a recent peace deal aimed at ending decades of conflict between the government and the armed wing of the opposition party, human rights experts say they suspect peace will not last. A mysterious, deadly insurgency is roaring in the nation's north, and political campaigning has been marred by attacks on candidates, rallies and gatherings that have left hundreds of people dead.
These elections in particular, we can safely say that they are on track to be one of the most violent the country has ever had.
Opperman says the insurgency in the north will make it almost impossible to have a smooth vote in that area.
To even talk, to even think about elections in this area is a joke. It is not simply going to happen. People are living in fear. For those who have been to Cabo Delgado, for those who have spoken and have done interviews with the locals, you can taste the fear.
And they predict a different struggle in the seat of power, where the Frelimo party has held power since 1975.
For the first time after 40 years of independence, Frelimo faces the real risk of losing.
The ruling party saw its worst result in 2018 municipal elections, bringing in just 51% of the vote. Opperman says they're unlikely to accept a loss this year.
But there is no way that they're going to let go of power. And I think we must be clear on that.
The moment of truth will come when Mozambique votes next week. Anita Powell, VOA News, Johannesburg.
Tunisia faces political deadlock following Sunday's election, which delivered a fragmented parliament and no obvious path to forming a government that must urgently address the country's economic and fiscal problems. Exit polls show the moderate Islamist Ennahda as coming in first, but its vote share appears to be modest, meaning it would need to bring in many other parties to form a workable coalition. Several rival parties have already said they would not join a government led by Ennahda. Official results are expected on Tuesday. If no coalition can be formed within 2 months, Tunisians face the possibility of another election. The parliamentary vote comes amid a separate presidential election in which one of the two candidates who advanced to the next Sunday's runoff vote is being held in detention on corruption charges. Cameroon's main opposition leader, Maurice Kamto, and at least 100 of his party officials and supporters have walked free from jail. A military court ordered their release at the behest of long-serving President Paul Biya. Kamto was released after spending 9 months in prison following surprise conciliatory gestures from Biya. The 86-year-old Biya faces a number of domestic crises and international criticism over political freedoms.
We went back to prison for no reason, and we came out with no reason. We went to prison for our ideas, and we are ready to go back for our ideas. We are not fighting anyone. We are fighting for Cameroon. You can be against a government, but you can stay for your country.
65-year-old Kamto was arrested in late January following months of peaceful opposition protests over the results of the October 2018 election.
A sense of satisfaction, but at the same time, I'm a little unhappy that this decision could not be made a few days earlier to allow these icons of Cameroon politics to participate effectively in the great national dialogue. It is regrettable that we can't, but we say that it is better that it is done like this than it is not done at all.
Amnesty International says Biya's decision is, quote, a welcome step towards ending the long repression of dissenting voices in Cameroon. A spokesperson for UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says he welcomes the national dialogue and encourages Cameroonian authorities to continue to adopt further confidence-building and reconciliation measures. U.S. Congresswoman Karen Bass and Ilhan Omar have held talks with government and civil society leaders in Niger. They are focusing on efforts to combat violent extremism. Their visit comes 2 years after Islamist militia killed 4 U.S. and 5 Nigerian soldiers near the border with Mali. Bass told reporters U.S. lawmakers are looking for ways to help discourage young people from joining radical groups.
The entire world is concerned about the security situation here, and we wanted to come and see exactly what the involvement the United States has. So we are happy that the cooperation between our two countries is very strong. We want to figure out how to strengthen it, and most importantly, we want to look at how we get to and address the root causes of the problem, why people get involved in terrorism, and how do we prevent it on the front end.
How do we make sure that we are helping in educating a population that is going to be the majority of the world very soon? We've been very concerned about the youth pulse of Africa and examining what the opportunities could be and where the challenges might be. And I think for me, as someone who left the continent because of conflict, I am very much interested in figuring out how do we mitigate conflicts, how do we set up the continent to have successes in every single country, how do we, as a United States Congress and as a country, have policies that are going to help in advance and enhance and set Africa up for prosperity. Before the Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee speaks, you know, one thing I'm very much interested in is figuring out how actually we address, right, some of the gaps that exist. When you have youth that are dealing with unemployment, that are dealing with lack of education, young women who are being forced to get married at a young age, when you're dealing with young mothers who are unable to feed their children, young fathers who feel like they might not be able to have the kind of successes that they imagine, they become vulnerable, and vulnerable communities can be exploited.
That was Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. She spoke with reporters in Niger. Our thanks to VOA's Yusuf Abdullahi for that video. The story of a Somali refugee who had hoped to be reunited with her son has ended in tragedy. Ramlo Ali Nur's 16-year-old son Abdiaziz, the youngest of her 3 teenage boys, died while waiting for their resettlement cases to be processed by the Trump administration. Havovi Cooper has more.
Somali refugee Ramlo Ali Nur lives in Columbus, Ohio, where she's rented a large apartment in anticipation of the arrival of her 3 sons from Uganda. But they're just 2 now. On September 22nd, their 16-year-old brother died suddenly from a brain infection.
It affects us so much. When we lost the brother, he had no problem, he was a good boy. 3 of us, we wanted to see the mom. For him, he was the youngest. She left him when he was too young. So he was the most major one who wants to see the mom. He always used to say that, I want to see mom, I want to see mom. When should we go there?
The brothers, who live with an uncle in a cramped Kampala housing complex, have been waiting to be reunited with their mother since 2015, when she applied with the U.S. government to bring over her 3 boys, but their cases faced holdups in refugee processing under the Trump administration.
We heard before that Donald Trump, and he says that he doesn't need much refugees. So we pray that we see our mom. Hopefully and too near.
I'm dying to meet you. Tonight is my mom. And every day I miss her. The only thing I do is just pray to God and unite us.
19-year-old Abdi Rahman and 18-year-old Abdullahi have been separated from their mother since 2010, when she fled strife-torn Somalia. Noor could only afford to travel alone, so she left her children with 2 of their aunts in the hope of reuniting when she found a new home. Soon after she left, one of the aunts was killed and the other injured in a militant attack on a market in a village south of Mogadishu. With a job as a home health aide in the U.S., she was able to pay for the boys to move to Uganda. Now, she fears the window for her 2 surviving sons to make it into the United States is closing. On October 1st, the Trump administration slashed the refugee ceiling to 18,000, its lowest since the modern refugee program began in 1980.
And my interest is not about all to be in USA, but what I want to see is my mom, who lives there. So we wanted to be united, and we shall be alive together the remaining time of our life.
That was Havovi Kopa of Reuters with that report. Now, this week, we turn our focus to Zambia. The nation's president made headlines recently when he warned that climate change is threatening to derail Zambia's economy. Africa 54's managing editor, Vincent Makori, is in the southern African country this week as part of a collaboration with our affiliate partner, ZNBC. Today, Vincent brings us the first in a series of special reports from Zambia.
The iconic Maize Victoria Falls roars right behind me. In fact, the Victoria Falls straddles the borders of Zambia and Zimbabwe. Ordinarily, in good months, this should be a spectacular view of the Victoria Falls. But for the last few months in the region, there has been extreme drought, severe drought that has led to the volume on the Victoria Falls to be extremely low. In fact, on the Zimbabwe side, where we're standing today, there is some water. There is some waterfall. But when you turn to the other side, the Zambian side, the drought there has had serious consequences. On the Victoria Falls, on the Zambian side, if you look over there, you can hardly see a drop of water. It's extremely dry, that in fact all you're likely to see are deep, dry gorges. Well, for the whole week, we'll be in Zambia, bringing you stories ranging from the economy, the environment, health, and even energy, in collaboration with our Zambian affiliate, ZNBC. This is Vincent Makori, managing editor, Africa 54 in Zimbabwe.
Be sure to join us every day this week as our team brings you special reports from Zambia. We'll also bring you a News Corps production with Zambia's national television this coming Friday. Stay tuned. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, U.S. lawmakers put their differences aside at a charity congressional football game. We'll be back.
I am Sheikh Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
Could be French,
English,
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African Beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. For centuries, women of the Tanzanian island of Zanzibar have celebrated weddings and special events by having their hands and feet decorated with henna, a plant-based dye. In recent years, it's been a way for the artists to earn an income, especially in a conservative society that often demands women stay at home. When painted on the body, henna fades after several days, but a group of Zanzibari women have found a way to add value to their craft and immortalize their designs by transferring them to canvas and paper. It's not just about keeping their motifs alive, it's also an income generator. Next up, an artist in Russia is evoking memories of the USSR by recreating scenes through a series of unique dolls. Maria Vergutskaya depicts scenes of everyday life of Russian and Soviet pensioners. Creating a scene can take from several days to several months. No doll is ever the same. Each has its own unique story and emotions. Her dolls have been exhibited in museums, but they're not for sale. And finally, a 28-year-old man paralyzed from the shoulders down has been able to walk using his brain to operate a robotic skeleton. Scientists say the experiment in France is a first, but a long way from being a solution for disabled people who have no use of their limbs. Exoskeletons have come a long way and have become more sophisticated with advances in robotics. But it may be much longer before this technology becomes a solution for the most severely disabled people. And that's what's trending today.
Coffins carrying bodies of 13 women were driven away from the port of Lampedusa on Monday after they were recovered from the sea when a crowded migrant boat capsized in heavy weather. The Italian Coast Guard says rescuers picked up 22 survivors, but they fear many other people might have died in the accident, the latest in a series of sea disasters to hit migrants trying to cross the Mediterranean and reach Europe. The UN Migration Agency says the ship, which had set sail from Tunisia, was carrying around 50 people, almost all from Tunisia and West Africa. Italian magistrates are investigating the disaster, with a magistrate from Sicily traveling to Lampedusa to lead the probe. U.S. President Donald Trump has accused House Speaker Nancy Pelosi of high crimes, misdemeanors, and even treason as lawmakers in the Democrat-led House push forward with their impeachment inquiry against him. The level of crimes Trump mentioned in his late Sunday tweet are the same as those the U.S. Constitution cites as the threshold for removing a president from office. Trump reiterated his criticism of Congressman Adam Schiff, the chair of the House Intelligence Committee. Schiff is the House Democrat leading the impeachment inquiry. Trump took offense at the way Schiff described the president's phone call with the leader of Ukraine. On Sunday, President Trump said Pelosi knew of what he called Schiff's lies and massive frauds. Schiff had said the transcript of Trump's call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reads like a classic organized crime shakedown, and that Schiff's own version of the conversation was meant to be a parody. The impeachment inquiry is moving forward this week, with the House Intelligence, Foreign Affairs, and Oversight Committees set to hear testimony from several important figures. Meanwhile, the political rhetoric is heating up in Washington. A second whistleblower from the intelligence community has come forward, alleging wrongdoing by President Trump in his dealings with Ukraine. That's according to the lawyer who now represents two unnamed intelligence officials. And as VOA's Michael Sullivan reports, allegations of corruption are now flying in both directions.
Trump says he's concerned about corruption in Ukraine, possibly involving the Democratic frontrunner in the 2020 presidential campaign, Joe Biden, whose son, Hunter, had business dealings in a company that was under investigation in Ukraine. Trump asked the Ukrainian president to look into the matter in a phone call critics say was aimed at getting dirt on a rival in exchange for nearly $400 million in U.S. aid. An intelligence official complained, and another is said to have complained to Inspector General Michael Atkinson.
Comes from the most corrupt president we've had in modern history. He's the definition of corruption.
Trump calls the investigation a witch hunt by leading Democrats in Congress, including Adam Schiff, chairman of the House Intelligence Committee.
This is a fraudulent crime on the American people. But we'll work together with Shifty Schiff and Pelosi and all of them.
Trump says he's the one uncovering wrongdoing.
I don't care about Biden's campaign, but I do care about corruption.
Democrats say the president betrayed his oath of office.
The administration, without justification, withheld $391 million in military aid from a vulnerable Ukraine. The president then pressured a foreign leader to interfere in the 2020 elections and target an American citizen for political gain. That is textbook abuse of power.
Utah Senator Mitt Romney, a rare Trump critic among Republicans, calls the unfolding drama troubling. Another Republican says Trump is just doing his job.
I think when the president is trying to make sure that there is not corruption, that if we're going to be sending the hard-earned tax dollars of the American people to Ukraine to help them fight Russia, to help them get their country moving in the direction they need, to get the security assistance they need, I think he believes that we should make sure there's not corruption there.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was drawn into the controversy after saying he took part in Trump's call with the Ukrainian president. And texts from several U.S. diplomats revealed they were involved behind the scenes. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News, Los Angeles.
It's time for our Monday Sports Report, and joining us now is Sandy Shomari. Sandy, it's Monday. All right.
Yes, it is Monday, Esther. Thank you so much. The final day of the World Athletic Championships in Doha on Sunday saw the United States take both the men's and women's 400 meters relays to bring Team USA's medal count to 29, 14 golds ahead of Kenya and Jamaica, which each brought home 11 medals. Kenya racked in 5 golds and Jamaica 3. The United States comfortably won the men's 400 meters relay, reasserting their dominance after losing it 2 years ago. Kenya's Timothy Cheruiyot outclassed a field that included 2 Olympic champions. Cheruiyot led from the front to win the men's 1500 meters in 3 minutes 29.26 seconds and claim Kenya's 5th straight win in the event. Uganda's Joshua Cheptegei triumphed after a close battle in the 10,000 meters, winning his first world title and bringing his country their 2nd medal of the championship. And in soccer, Sudan has launched a women's football league. The move allows female players to push for wider acceptance. Sudan was governed by a strict Sharia law and deposed President Omar al-Bashir, and before the new transitional government came into effect, women's participation in sport was largely neglected. But both male and female fans cheered in the stands as the El Tahadi and El Difaa teams graced the sports stadium in capital Khartoum in the league's opening match on Monday. The league includes 21 teams from across Sudan, and match was officiated by female referees. Turning to American soccer, American football, every 2 years, Democrats and Republicans come together on a field for a charity congressional football game. Together with former NFL professionals, lawmakers play against the U.S. Capitol Police, and politics stays off the field. Daria Daigatz talked to some of the players after the game.
On this day, there is no such thing as partisanship. Once every 2 years, U.S. lawmakers come together on a football field for a charity congressional football game against the U.S. Capitol Police team.
Oh, I mean, we're here to win, yeah, but we're going to have fun while we're doing it.
By mutual agreement, politics stays on the sidelines, even though this year's match took place just hours after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced that House Democrats were moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry into U.S. President Donald Trump. This annual match first took place in 2005 when lawmakers' team Mean Machine and the Capitol Police, or the Guards, hit the gridiron to support the families of 2 slain police officers. Both acting and former lawmakers take part in the game together with former NFL professionals. There was a lot on the line. Congress has not won on this field since 2009, and the Capitol Police want to keep their streak going.
The second game now, I'm kind of used to a little more, but it's definitely a physical game out there. They raise good money for some good charities, Capitol Police funds, military funds. You know, it's a big environment. It's becoming a bigger event.
At halftime, Congress is up 8 points to 4, and even a day of political turmoil could not spoil the mood.
I was let down today what happened. I thought it was wrong. But in the end, we got to work together where we can, and I think we got to get past this hate and vitriol, because our country needs the 2 parties to work together.
Democrat Tom Malinowski, despite supporting the impeachment idea, also voiced hope that lawmakers will find common ground and work together.
But we get some bipartisan work done, and these things help because we get to know each other better, we become friends. It's easier to find common ground on the other issues.
The result of such dedicated teamwork was evident. Lawmakers won with 14-4. The funds raised during the game will be passed on to the families of policemen who die on duty, children of the military and low-income families. Daria Daigatz for VOA News, Washington.
Great moment. And that wraps our sports for today. Back to you, Esther.
Nice. Thank you, Sunday. Join Sunday Shomari next Monday for another sports report right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a good evening.